Hello and welcome to episode 6 of WightWanderer's Disused Railway Lines of the Isle of Wight. I'm Jack.
And I'm Eleanor.
And today we are walking the second part of the Freshwater Line, starting here where we left off last time in Ningwood. Now Ningwood station is actually 100 metres that way, but we are going this way towards Newport and the next station on the line, Calbourne. Though before that there are one or two past railway relics to check out. The second part of this trip will take us from Ningwood east past Doughty's brickworks in Calbourne before visiting the private halt at Watchingwell. Further along we reach Gunville at the site of another brickworks. Here we trace the line through an abundance of new builds via Carisbrooke to the eastern terminus at Newport. Our first stop is the brickworks east of Ningwood. This site was founded by Henry Doughty in 1905 and was served by a railway siding south of the running line. The site itself was only active for 24 years and closed in 1929. All but apparent rubble remains, with the chimney being demolished in World War II for fears of it being used as a landmark for enemy aircraft to navigate. Now, not too far east of the brickworks, the track bed abruptly stops, and this is because there is quite a substantial drop the other side of the trees to the bed of the Shish Ford. Spanning over this gap, carrying the railway, would have been a rather substantial viaduct. Now we're hoping to get a glimpse of the feet of the viaduct, which still do apparently exist, but it is that time of year where everything is rather overgrown, and apparently the embankments are quite steep, so we'll see. Do you want to push me down the hill? The viaduct over the Shish Ford, or River Calbourne, was opened for traffic in 1889. The girders were supported by concrete footings, which still remain in situ to this day. If you would like to know more about the remains of the Calbourne viaduct, there is a video up on Jeff IOW's channel which takes a closer look at the site. Meanwhile, in this video, we are on our first frustrating detour to the site of Calbourne Station. Unfortunately for us, on the day we did this walk, Elm Lane had been blocked off by what looked like water main repairs. So the following footage had to be filmed at a later date after an essential trip to the local pub, of course. Much like Ningwood, the station at Calbourne sits in an area of vast remoteness. Unlike Ningwood though, this station reflected the ruralness of its surroundings, with a small cottage-style appearance and a short goods siding. The location of the station actually caused disputes between the two villages of Calbourne and Shelfleet, chiefly about the name of the station itself, whether it should be called Calbourne and Shelfleet or just Calbourne. Eventually the residents of Shelfleet took matters into their own hands and proudly graffitied the word Shelfleet on the station sign. The alignment of the line from here is not as apparent as it would appear, snaking right off the obvious tree line through the field before swinging back northeast towards Pound Lane. The crossing cottage here has unfortunately been demolished, and all that seems to be left are the crossing gate posts. Looking east again, we can see how the line runs across the field, this time joining the noticeable tree line. Further down Pound Lane though, we stumble across something unexpected. On the grounds of Stone Farm appears to be the body of an old railway carriage, perhaps one that was once used on the railway. After yet another detour through private land, we pass the site of Swainston Manor. The original house here dated back to the 8th century. The current building was built in the 1700s though, and was owned by Sir John Simeon. So we're just walking up this dirt road from Swainston Manor. There's a muddy little track in the middle of nowhere, but up this track is a significant hidden relic of the Freshwater, Yarmouth and Newport Railway. The small hump in the track may go unnoticed, but hidden in the undergrowth either side, brickwork can be found. A short walk around the path reveals the structure in full, albeit partially filled in. This intact railway bridge has laid dormant and overgrown for 70 years. Approaching Watchingwell, the views open out over an achingly pretty landscape. The station building itself still stands to this day as a private dwelling. The land around it was once owned by Sir John Stephen Simeon of Swainton Manor, son of the aforementioned. He requested a private station be built in 1897 to be used only by himself, family and friends. He died in 1909, but it wasn't until 1923, when the Southern Railway took over, that the station appeared on the public railway timetable. We are now approaching the far reaches of Newport, and after a short walk along the trackbed, we are forced off the alignment of the line once again, as it becomes abundantly clear how little of this railway is still walkable. This view from the intact overbridge at Bettyhaunt Lane is a prime example of the issue, though the subtle change in the colour of the field blatantly shows where the long-gone railway once stood. Although the line from here eastwards was depicted as a footpath on the map, it appears once more a detour was necessary in order to not trespass. As we stumble across the first populous area of the video, inevitably much has changed, with the housing development and angling lake being built over the site of the once vast Gunwharf brickworks, situated just west of Gunville Road. Gunville is located just northwest of Carisbrooke, an area on the island famous for its castle, where Charles I was held prisoner shortly before his execution in 1649. Unfortunately though, much like himself, our time had also run out. So yes, it is another day. You can probably tell by our clothes, Nell's lovely new haircut, my inability to shave, and it's actually sunny, which is amazing. It's August and it's sunny. Who would have thought? When we got into Gunville the other day, it was already about 8 o'clock. We completely misjudged the amount of detours we had to take. So we're going to pick up from Gunville and walk the line through Carisbrooke to Newport, the next station on the line being Carisbrooke. This map overlay shows just how much of the area has changed over the years. Despite this though, the line is still traceable, as it roughly follows the alignment of Fieldfair Road to Carisbrooke Station. The station was located in what is now the playfield in Carisbrooke School. Though not a trace of the station is left, the dip in the landscape where the line ran is still considerably noticeable. The station was relatively busy during the summer months with visitors to the castle, but once the bus routes started to appear, the traffic was lost. The small goods siding seen little use aside from the movement of prisoners in World War II. So we're trying to find the path of the line from Carisbrooke to Newport. Of course, most of this area now is littered with new roads and new builds. Back in the 50s though, when this line was axed, there was only one road. It was called Petticoat Lane, and we're going to try and find it now. From Carisbrooke to Petticoat Lane, the line headed northeast past the Pavilion and Victoria Recreational Ground, opened in 1902. Another detour through modern housing development is then necessary before we stumble across Petticoat Lane. And here we are at Petticoat Lane, once the only road in the area, now a mere footpath amongst a sea of cul-de-sacs and new builds. From here we're going to walk down the path that way and try and find the place where the railway crossed Petticoat Lane. A little further down the path we find the point in which the railway once crossed. A solitary portion of rail left sticking out the ground, perhaps as an indication, although on the other side, hidden behind a fence, lay a rather larger indication. Perhaps the only remaining relic of the railway in this area, the gatekeeper's cottage, which can be seen in the far left of this picture taken in the early 1900s. Onwards, the alignment is traceable as an elevated section behind the new builds before it emerges alongside the northern wall of what is now a supermarket. Here, on approach to Newport, was perhaps the most spectacular and unusual segment of the line. For users of the number 1 bus, this area at the bottom of Honey Hill is perhaps highly recognisable. 70 years ago though, a rather imposing object would have also been visible in this shot. A trestle viaduct, carrying the line from the embankment on the west, over Honey Hill and the brook to the brick portion of the structure, finally curving into Newport. We are now only 100 metres before the end of the line at Newport station, but strangely enough, there is actually another station on this line. So if you remember all the way back in part 1, I explained that in 1913 the Freshwater Yarmouth Newport Railway and the Isle of Wight Central Railway split, and up to this point the Isle of Wight Central Railway had been running the passenger services on the line, and that was fine because Newport Railway Station was owned by the Central Railway. But after this split, the Freshwater Yarmouth Newport Railway had no station to terminate in Newport, so they had to build their own one. The station itself was a clear depiction of the company's financial woes at the time, in stark contrast to other terminus stations on the island like Cowes and Ventnor. With their large and lavish proportions, the Freshwater Yarmouth and Newport Railway terminus at Newport consisted of a wooden platform, a waiting shelter and little else. The station itself was in use for a mere 10 years before grouping in 1923. When the Southern Railway took over the island's railways, allowing freshwater trains to once again terminate at the main station at Newport. Though this in itself was a bit of a palaver, as the location of the junction being north of the station rather than south meant that trains from Freshwater would have to be taken partially up the line towards Cowes before being shunted back into the station. This continued until the 21st of September 1953, when after the loss of revenue was deemed unsustainable and the line closed for good, marking the end for this beautifully quirky railway and its troubled yet charming history. And that is the story of the Freshwater Yarmouth and Newport Railway. We do hope you've enjoyed watching these videos, and if you have, please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time for episode 7. Hopefully it will be this sunny again. Take care.